So today, basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and look at civil rights. Okay, and when I say civil rights here, I'm not talking about like the movement in the 1960s. Okay, these are the rights that are protected under the Constitution. Okay, for the most part, your civil rights come out of the Fifth Amendment, just like your civil liberties come out of the First Amendment. All right. So what we're looking at here is this idea of due process of law, because this is the sort of quintessential aspect that relates to civil rights. Okay, because we talked about this before, civil rights is non-discrimination, right? Due process ensures that everyone has, and the other term you'll hear is equal protection under the law. That ensures that you're not being discriminated against. Okay? So you understand, and there's a couple of court cases about it, but there are sometimes issues where property rights and public welfare come into conflict. So there are instances in which the government can actually come in and sort of take your property. It's called eminent domain. My assumption is you're probably familiar with that term, or I would hope you're familiar with that term, because Donald Trump liked to use it. Right, that's how Donald Trump kicked like a little 80-year-old woman out of her house in New Jersey. And sadly, yes, that's a true story. Alright. Anybody know what the eminent domain was for? A parking garage. Right.
Did she get a free parking spot?
No, but here's the thing. And I mean, a lot of people sit there and they think, oh, eminent domain is so terrible. The government doesn't come in and take your property. They come in and pay you for your property. Okay? And they pay you whatever is deemed a fair market value. Okay? They don't get to come in and be like, we think this is worth $10. Get out. Alright? And so the truth of the matter is, I mean, that woman was paid more than what her home would have sold for years prior, before Trump began constructing the massive hotels and casinos down there that increased property values. Alright? So that's this idea here of eminent domain. Alright? In terms of public welfare, we do have instances in which sort of private property can be regulated, especially as it relates to public welfare in terms of businesses. You should remember this from A-Push, right? Last year, you remember the jungle?
Yeah.
The day that you read about, like, human sausage, right? When people's fingers got cut off and they got ground up with everything else, and the rats and all that good stuff. Okay, so things like that, the government can step in and regulate what are considered private industries or private property issues in regards to public safety, which is deemed acceptable. All right, now the aspect here of due process of law, and like I said, this comes from the Fifth Amendment. Okay, due process of law means that the United States government, whether at the federal or at the state level, because the 14th Amendment applies this now to the state level, cannot deny you of life, liberty, or property without what is called due process. Okay? Due process simply means procedures, right? So can they deny you of your liberty, right? Can Christian go to jail if he murders somebody? Yes, right? Does that deny him his liberty? Yes. If he is a prisoner, he is no longer free. Okay? Is that legal in our constitutional system?
Go through the whole process.
Yes, because he will go through this entire procedural due process system, okay, in which he gets brought before a judge and he's told what his crime is. Okay? He is allowed to confront his accusers. He is allowed to defend himself in a public court. He is allowed to a trial by jury of his peers. He is allowed all sorts of things to ensure that that liberty, that basic freedom, is not taken without just cause. alright? So, it absolutely can happen, alright? Even in something like eminent domain, where the government is coming in and taking your property, they have to give you due process, which means that they have to have provided you with significant notice. They have to provide you with a forum in which you can go and publicly speak as to why you do not believe that this should be done and you want to protect your own property or not be forced to sell is really the key there. And whatever it is, there is a process that plays out, which is what this idea here of due process is. And there are times where you should understand that your due process can be violated, and it's not supposed to be. But if you're not sure when it's being violated, this is what you should pay attention to. For instance, you cannot have, or you should not be subject to illegal searches, which means that if a police officer pulls you over and asks to search your car, what's your answer?
No.
I mean, look, you can say yes if you want, and it's not an illegal search at that point, but you don't have to say yes. If you do not say yes, right, he cannot look or she cannot look in your automobile unless they detain you and they wait on a warrant. That warrant requires probable cause. And so I'm not saying that they can't search your car just because you said no. What I'm saying is it makes the process longer. It's part of your due process rights. In order for a police officer to obtain a warrant, warrants actually have to be signed by judges, which means he has to go and basically go to whoever his DA is, whoever his attorney is that prosecutes crimes. Okay, tell the attorney what the evidence is. The attorney writes up the warrant, brings it to a judge, explains to the judge why it's necessary. The judge signs it, they take it back to the cop, and then the cop gives it to you and can search your car. And that's a long process. In reality, if you get pulled over at like midnight on a Friday night of a long weekend, what do you think the odds are that they're going to find a judge in 24 hours? Maybe not that good, and they can only hold you for up to 24 hours. Okay? Understand though that if he asks to search your car and you say no, and he happens to look in the back seat and see something that's illegal, he no longer needs your permission. And anything that is easily viewable is fair game. All right? What?
What if he says, like, he thought there was something illegal in the backseat? Like, I thought I saw a gun tucked under the backseat or something. I don't know.
Well, so here's the thing. There's also something called probable cause that exists. I mean, look, here's the thing. If your eyes won't dilate and you're unresponsive, right? Or the cop asks you what day of the week it is and you're like 7, okay? Then he's going to be like, this person is probably on something. I now have probable cause to search your automobile to figure out whatever it is that you're on. And that would hold up in court. And he does not need a warrant at that point. And probable cause and then something called exigent circumstances are two instances in which police officers do not need to obtain a warrant. Okay? Exigent circumstances basically just means that, I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, it's been a while since I've gone through all this legal stuff. Exigent circumstances is witnessing a crime not related to whatever the officer is doing at the time, if I remember correctly, but that makes it like acceptable, right? So let's just say for the sake of, actually, let's use an example of a North Carolina basketball player, right? Because God love Will Graves. Will Graves went to the high school that I used to teach at in North Carolina. And Will Graves is not the brightest man in the world, okay? Because Will Graves played college basketball and he likes to partake in a substance that they test for in college that makes it illegal to continue playing athletics. Anybody not know what I'm talking about? Marijuana. He liked to smoke pot. Okay? So Will Graves got kicked off the North Carolina basketball team, but because the coach is a nice guy and really cared about him, and Will was supposedly cleaning himself up, Roy Williams let him live in a home, or an apartment, or a home that he had there in Chapel Hill while Will tried to go back to school and finish his degree. And one day, the cops showed up because there was a broken window on the house, and they thought maybe somebody was squatting in the home. They didn't realize that it was not vacant anymore. So the cops went and they knocked on the front door. Will Graves answered. Had a little conversation. Cops said, "Can I come in and look around?" Will Graves was like, "Yeah, sure." Because maybe somebody had broken in. Cop walks into the living room and there's a bong sitting on the coffee table. And now Will Graves is going to jail. Like an idiot. Okay? Was the cop looking for that? No. But because it was in plain sight, okay, it's fair game. Alright. Hold on, where was I? Unfair court procedures. We know who Dylan Roof is? Because this is probably the best. First of all, who's Dylan Roof? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, he's the white boy from South Carolina, like the 20-year-old or however old he was, who went into a black church and killed 9 people. He wounded a few more. I don't remember the exact number of people that were shot in that instance. I know it was killed 9. He wounded a few more. But anyways, so he went to trial. His trial actually recently ended, and he was convicted, and then in his sentencing trial, he was given the death penalty. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, Dylan Roof will probably not ever be executed. I don't know if he's just unbelievably smart, or if he is the dumbest, luckiest person alive. Because he's going to be able to appeal his verdict based on unfair court procedures. And because Dylan Roof had a really, really stupid attorney, okay, which is actually not fair to him in terms of due process. Anybody know who Dylan Roof's stupid attorney was? Dylan Roof. He represented himself, which there's a whole joke in the legal community, right? An attorney or anyone who represents themselves has a fool for a client. And like, even if you look, I understand the law probably better than most non-attorneys. Certainly, I would assume I understand the law better than Dylan Roof. Right? I would not defend myself in like a DUI case, let alone a capital murder case where I could be executed. All right. Okay. Let's see.
Wait.
What?
So he didn't get appealed because since he did it himself, that's unfair to him.
Yeah, he can appeal on those grounds. So here's the way appeal. Like, you can't just appeal for the sake of appeals, right? Like, if Will is convicted of murder one day, he can't just be like, I want to appeal because I don't like the decision. It's not fair. Can't do that, right? You have to have some sort of grounds for an appeal. An incompetent attorney is always grounds for an appeal.
He chose himself.
Doesn't matter. That's the funny thing about it. It does not matter. And here's the thing. I mean, well, like I said, he's either the dumbest, luckiest person in the world, or he was really smart in knowing what he was doing from the get-go.
I think I'd take the death penalty over life in prison. Especially if I was him, because he's not going to life in prison.
Yeah,
They're gonna beat him up every day.
Yeah, he probably will die in prison. Let's be honest. He either going to be killed in prison, or he's going to live in isolation for the rest of his life. And either way, I'd actually agree with Will. I'm going to tell you right now, if I ever go on like a mass killing streak, I'm going to go before a judge and be like, I did it, just go ahead and fast track me to the gas chamber. Like, let's be done with it. Like, I don't want to waste taxpayer time and money. Like, just let's go out back right now. You can put a rope up there and get this done. Alright? Okay, so substantive substantive due process, this would be, so procedural relates to you individually, right? Substantive then relates to like the larger group. We've seen this in other things that we have talked about, like citizenship yesterday, right? You can naturalize a whole bunch of people all at once, or there's the individual process. Okay, so substantive violations of due process would be like a ban on all abortions, or a ban on all firearms, or things like that. What?
I know it's like somewhat related, but if you don't have an all-out ban on these things, but you make it extremely difficult, that's not violating it or anything.
So, here's the thing. And you can actually use the abortion as the example right now, because there are a number of states that have increased the sort of procedures or the requirements in order to obtain an abortion, by like decreasing the number of places where one could happen, as well as sort of increasing the requirements in order to be able to have one. So that's actually gone before the Supreme Court recently. Unfortunately, because we have 8 court members, no decision was reached as to whether or not that's legal, if I'm remembering that case correctly. And I don't know how the court would decide on that. Okay? My assumption, my hope would be, I don't want to say my assumption, my hope would be that if you make it so difficult in terms of the process that it's ultimately impossible, then that's a violation of due process. It should be, right? You can't make it to where you cannot exercise sort of basic rights that we believe in just because you don't like that one individual right. Alright, so if we look at these, okay, can we classify this as procedural or substantive? Procedural. Substantive. Substantive. Because it relates to everybody. Procedural. Relates to one individual. Alright? So, now, here we get into fun stuff. Right? This is always the fun day. Everybody always wants to know, like, what are my actual rights if I get arrested? And I would advise you don't get arrested, but, you know, just in case, we should go through this. Alright? So, I told you that probable cause is required for a warrant. A warrant is required in order for the police to search something. Okay? That is your Fourth Amendment right. Okay? Fourth Amendment, what are you looking for? Easy way to remember that. Alright? There are instances where they don't have to get a warrant. We covered some of those already. Okay? There are actually instances as well, this aspect here of hot pursuit, where police are allowed to leave their jurisdiction and still make an arrest or whatever, right? So if you're like, let's just say for the sake of argument that you're speeding down I-59, okay, and a Fort Bend County sheriff starts following you as you get into Harris County, okay, if he clocked you in Fort Bend County, he can still pull you over and cite you in Harris County, even though that's outside of his jurisdiction officially. Alright, because he witnessed the crime in his jurisdiction, he can pursue you outside of it. Okay? For the most part, that doesn't happen with like speeding tickets, but I mean, like an important crime, right? Like if he's chasing somebody that he believes to be a murder suspect, he can cross county lines to still arrest him. All right. Again, so warrants issued with probable cause. Make sure if you are ever presented a warrant, if a cop ever knocks on your door and says, "We have a warrant," first of all, you better demand it. You better give it to you. Okay. Secondly, you better know how to read. Open it up, and one, make sure it has your name and your address on it. Okay. is sadly cops have been known from time to time to not serve warrants correctly. What?
So my aunt, they thought she was running drugs out of her house, but someone was running drugs out of her house while she was gone, and they like broke into her house like while she was home, and didn't have a warrant.
They didn't have a warrant?
They also didn't know it was like someone else running drugs out of the house. Like they thought she was running, so she got like arrested.
Well, here's the thing. They actually might have had what's called a no-knock warrant, which is a whole different issue for a whole different time. Didn't we talk about no-knock warrants during congressional minute here? Yeah. Okay. So, because drugs is generally why you get a no-knock warrant, so that might have actually been the case. But here's the thing. What you understand is when a warrant is issued, it has to be specific. Okay? And to the point where, like, I mean, again, let's just say for the sake of argument, right, Will is accused or believed to have murdered somebody, right? They go to Will's house and they want to look for the murder weapon, okay? But Will hid the murder weapon in his car. If his car is not on the warrant and they find the murder weapon in his car, it is not admissible in court.
That'd be clutch.
Well, police are smart enough that if they're going to the house, they had the car on, okay? And there are instances where a police officer or a warrant will be written for your home, right? You'll have like a shed out back. They search the shed, and then the question becomes in court, was the shed part of the house? Most of the time, they're gonna say yes, the shed is a part of the house. That's acceptable within the confines of the warrant. Alexis, you had a question?
Oh yeah, so if it is the wrong warrant, like, you know, the police is lying, and then they figure out that the police was lying, like, let's say later in court after they found like drugs in your house or something, would it be dismissed, or does it still count?
Anything that is found illegally cannot be used in a trial or in court.
Like, let's say, okay, so like the warrant, like, was at a different address, they just used it to pretend like it was you, but you didn't read the warrant, you're stupid, you didn't do it. So, everything's dismissed, right?
Yes.
Because it was the wrong warrant. Okay.
Yes. If you have a decent attorney. And here's the thing, if they found like a pound of marijuana in your house, right, they can't use that at trial, okay? If they found whatever, they can't use it. All they could do is go obtain a warrant, come back and search legally, and let's hope you would be smart enough at that point to get rid of everything that would be incriminating. If you're not smart enough to get rid of everything that's incriminating at that point, you probably deserve to go to jail anyway. I mean, let's just be honest. All right? What? So there are, like I said, there are instances in which searches are legal even without a warrant. We talked about that. So when can you make arrests? Believe it or not, you cannot, a police officer cannot arrest somebody whenever they like. Okay? Even if they have what they believe to be substantive evidence that would produce a conviction, they still cannot arrest you whenever they like. All right? Some states can have their own individual laws on this. I know that there are a handful of states where a police officer cannot arrest you in your own home unless you have a warrant, unless he has a warrant for an arrest. Because you can get a warrant for an arrest as well. And so what that means is that if you ever have done something wrong and the cops show up at your house and they're like, hey, will you step out here and talk to us? Be like, nope. I'm standing right here in my house. What you got? All right? What?
Someone told me that if you feel like a police officer is violating your rights, then you have the rights to arrest the officer.
I'm gonna arrest someone.
You're not gonna make that stick. And listen, there is something called citizen's arrest. Okay, it is a real provision within our law.
What is it?
Okay.
Like citizen to citizen.
But here's the thing: a police officer is still a citizen. Okay, and at no point in time should police officers ever be above the law. They are not. In all honesty, if anything, police officers should actually be held to a stricter standard of the law than what you and I are held at. Okay, like just from a personal standpoint, because I see it regularly. There's nothing that irritates me more than a cop that drives up to a stop sign, flips his lights on, blows through the stop sign, and then flips his lights off because he didn't want to stop. He didn't have nowhere to go. He wasn't pursuing somebody. Just too lazy to stop at a stop sign. And I've seen cops do that. That's, as a cop, you should not have that kind of authority to just violate basic law like that. Like that's not, if that's why you want to become a cop, don't do it. Alright? That's just ridiculous. Alright, but as far as like trying to arrest a cop, you have a hard time doing it. And although I do know of an incident years ago in which a cop and a firefighter both placed each other under arrest. At the scene of an accident because they were arguing over who should actually save the victim of the car accident. Yeah, which is sad. Alright, we got to this, or we started talking about this a second ago, the exclusionary rule. This is the instance in which evidence that is obtained illegally cannot be used in court. Alright, so illegally obtained evidence can't be used in court. This would be obtained evidence without the warrant or with a warrant that was not served correctly. There are people who claim that like the exclusionary rule is really a get out of jail free card. Right? Again, I sort of look at it, I sort of make the argument that the police need to be beyond reproach. And if the police make a mistake, I'd rather a guilty person go free. Because one of the provisions here of our justice system is that is honestly you're better off letting one guilty person go free or even letting 10 guilty people go free than you are of imprisoning one innocent person. Right? Which is the way our system is set up, which is why you are innocent until proven guilty. Okay. Now there are instances, believe it or not, where the exclusionary rule doesn't apply. Okay. So one of them is what they call inevitable discovery, which means is the prosecution can prove that it would have been discovered eventually anyways. They can get by with that. The idea of good faith, which simply means that a police officer was doing what he thought was valid on the warrant, which, here's the thing, I would tell you, and again, to me, as far as good faith goes to a citizen, it's something that should be applied in a legal precedent or a legal standard. And if you were doing what you thought was legal at the time, honestly, you probably shouldn't be punished for it. Okay? Police officers should know better. Okay? Right? Like, how many of you have ever signed your mom's name on something? Did you commit a crime?
Yes.
Are you certain? How many of you have ever signed your mom's name on something with your mom's permission? Is that a crime? It is not. Here's the thing. Fraud actually requires intent. In all honesty, I would make the argument that at no point in time did any of you commit a crime, because are you really attempting to defraud somebody? Are you attempting to put your mother in danger based off of signing her signature on something? No. Okay? Did you attempt to intentionally break the law in signing your mother's signature? Probably not, unless you're writing a fake note to get out of school. And let's be honest, that's probably what a lot of you did.
I mean, if I knew that was illegal, I'd still do it.
Okay. The Patriot Act, which anybody who's had me before knows I rail about all the time. It's a terrible, terrible law.
Wait, so you liked Snowden?
Yes.
Okay.
I consider Snowden a whistleblower, not a traitor. Okay? The Patriot Act affords the national government the opportunity to violate the Fourth Amendment. And in increasing manners versus what existed before the Patriot Act even. At this point, they can, if they believe that you might be in contact with a foreign person, okay, they can tap your phone. If government says that it needs your phone records, it can tap your phone. And which is ironic or ridiculous because government, anything government wants, it claims that it needs. Do you understand that concept? Right? Like some of you are like, dude, I need $100. No, you don't. You want $100. Okay? There's a difference in those two words. But government will claim that whatever it wants, it needs, and then it's like, oh, national security reasons. Can't argue that. Alright? So yeah, now the government gets to listen to your phone calls, read your text messages, your emails, all that good stuff. And they can get your student records, they can get bank records, they can do all kinds of stuff, right? Alright. Protections in terms of questioning, protections against self-incrimination. This is what you know about the Fifth Amendment. This is the one that most people know, right? I plead the Fifth. You do not have to testify against yourself at any point in time, right? As far as questioning goes, you're allowed to have an attorney present. You're allowed to remain silent. Y'all know that. You've seen TV, so you know what your Miranda rights are because you've seen like 22 Jump Street or whatever. All right. Okay. Some of these can, and again, there's times where Congress can suspend some of this stuff. And habeas corpus is the idea of producing a body. You can't be detained indefinitely. We've talked about this already and how it can be suspended in a time of war. All right. No laws after the fact. We've already talked about that. And bill of attainder is punishing somebody without the benefit of a trial. All right. So the rights of the accused. Now you have a right to counsel. Again, that's part of your Miranda rights. Although that's actually stipulated based on a different case. That case is Gideon v. Wainwright. Okay? So, even if, here's the thing. So you know from your Miranda rights, like attorney will provide, even if you can't afford one, attorney will provide it for you or whatever it says. Okay? Understand, that does not mean that that attorney is 100% free. Okay? Public defenders, you still owe them money. Okay, you just get to pay them a very, very decrease, like it's a set fee. They don't get to charge whatever they want like most attorneys do. And you can pay them back over a considerable period of time. No excessive bail. Obviously excessive, that's one of those sort of arbitrary terms. But basically it means you can't hold somebody on like a $10 million bail because they cheated on their taxes, right? There are instances, though, where you can be denied bail altogether, right? So the guy they caught in Florida here, like in the last 48 hours, 24 hours, whatever it was, and the one who killed his pregnant girlfriend and then executed a cop, he ain't getting no bail, right? He will stay in jail until his trial is done. All right? So depending on the gravity of the offense, you can be denied bail. If it's likely that you would jump bail or flee, you can be denied bail. Okay, again, so we know our little affluenza team up in Dallas. No, we don't know about that case.
Yeah.
A little teenager who got drunk, drove a car, killed a couple of people, and then claimed that it wasn't his fault because mommy and daddy were rich, and so he didn't understand consequences. Okay, and he got off. Okay. And then, like an idiot of your generation, posted pictures of himself online drinking underage. This is a violation of his probation. So what did he do? Mommy took him to Mexico. Right? Yeah, this is real. I'm not making this up. Alright? So if you're going to jump bail, yeah, they can prevent you from going too. Alright? What?
Are they still Mexican?
No, Mexico sent him back. Which Mexico doesn't always do, because we do not have what's called SOFA with Mexico, which is a statute of forces agreement. If you get arrested in a Mexican prison, Mexico can just hold you indefinitely if they want to. Right? Like, that is not the case with everybody. Although we do extradite from time to time. You might have heard that El Chapo is now in the U.S. right? And that's the little drug lord from Mexico that already escaped once. Okay? You have the right to a speedy and public trial. I will tell you right now, that's a right that a lot of people waive, especially for like capital offenses, because you want as long as possible in order to create your defense. All right. Grand jury indictment. Okay, that's basically presenting the case without you there, without the defense there, and it's to a jury of 12, and I think only 7 have to say yes. And then it actually goes to trial. That doesn't mean you're convicted of anything, it just means you go to trial. Alright? You get a trial by jury, okay? You can actually waive that if you want to. Okay? So, like, if you think that you're innocent and a judge would say that you're innocent, right, but other Americans are too stupid to figure that out, you can waive your right to a trial by jury. Most people don't do that. Alright? You get to bring witnesses, you get to address or face witnesses against you. Okay, no cruel and unusual punishment, that goes with excessive bail in the 8th Amendment. Death penalty is not cruel and unusual, although some people think it is. Some people say 3 strikes and you're outlaws are cruel and unusual punishment. Because literally, I mean, like your third crime can be ridiculously nothing and you know. Okay, double jeopardy.
Wait, so like the third crime, like what?
Like possession of marijuana.
I mean, no.
And you go to prison for the remainder of your life. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Double jeopardy simply means you can't be tried for the same thing twice. O.J. Simpson could come out today and be like, I killed Nicole! And it doesn't matter. Nothing can happen to him. He was already proven or declared to be not guilty. Alright? So there you go. I will post your review on Edmodo today. Alright? Because I'm going to be nice and I'm going to give you another review. I'm going to tell you right now, honestly, review, not as important on this one. This test, first of all, this class did really well in the last test. This test is even easier. Okay? This is the easiest test that you will take. Well, maybe it was the easiest test people took last semester because they paid attention to the review. I don't know. But yeah. We only have like 30 seconds, right? 5 seconds? All right, there you go. Monday, either before or after school year. Yes, sir.
So I have a question.
I have an answer, John.
I heard there was a quiz yesterday. That's my first question.
Yeah, Monday before or after school.
Okay, yeah, because I came from after school today.
I don't stay after school on Friday.
And I can't remember my question, but I remember I wanted to ask it for. Can the government force a private institution to do something?
There are instances where it can, yes.
So, like, could it say private institutions have to ban safe spaces?
Yes, because they could make the argument that the private institution is violating the individual's freedom of speech, in which case, yes, they could step in and do that. Okay? Because if basically two private entities are at conflict over fundamental rights, the government can step in and determine who's actually correct there. Okay?
Do you have degree? I mean, not degree, like when do you have to